This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Kia ora and welcome to Emergence News. My name is Nigel and with me in the studio today is Peter. Greetings, Peter.
Hello, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. You're looking good?
Yeah, good.
Now, we do have John with us. He's in another studio. We're taking precautions here, John.
Yes, Nigel. I've decided I don't want to spend any more time in a room with you and Peter.
I could see that one coming.
Yeah, opened the door for me, Nigel. I just had to take
it was wide open. If you're familiar with this program and you've just tuned in with us again, we welcome you. If you're listening to us for the first time, Emergence News is all about the emergence of Maitreya, the next world teacher, for the next 2,500 years. His emergence is gradual. And if you heard the last podcast, the last program, we were discussing the progress of the emergence, and of course that we were first, I guess, Peter, exposed to the story back in the 1980s.
That's right, yeah.
And we were talking about, you and John both took a personal, your responses were quite personal. You talked about it from a personal point of view, and that you both thought that the emergence might have arrived by now.
Indeed, but we're patiently waiting.
And John, you also talked about the passing of Benjamin Creme, of course, the Scottish artist. He was also author for many years, and he was one of the key oracles of the story of Maitreya and his re-emergence.
Yeah, it had a profound effect on me, Nigel, and I think I said at the time that it shook my faith because I had a belief, completely unfounded, that Benjamin Creme would be alive at or during the emergence of Maitreya. And I don't know where I got that belief from. I guess it's the power of false thinking, and I succumbed to it. So when Ben died, it really did shake me.
And I suspect amongst the Share International volunteers globally, you're probably not the only one or the only one that had that experience.
Look, Nigel, I think you're probably right. I haven't spoken to anyone else about it, to be quite honest. However, I think you may be right, because Benjamin Creme, even though he didn't want it and in fact argued against it, I believe had quite a following around his presence and his personality and his telling of the story. And I think that for many, many people, it's difficult to separate the story and the storyteller. And I think on some level, I probably fell in love with Benjamin Creme. So when he died, without Maitreya emerging, I kind of lost something. And it's taken me a while to kind of re-establish my faith, I guess, my commitment.
Yes, and I wonder if that's happened with other teachers over the years, such as Alice Bailey, Blavatsky, Roy Rich.
Yeah. I think people definitely do it becomes almost a personality cult, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. And you could argue the emergence is in motion. It is beginning to be felt, but I would say, John, increasingly by those that do have a perceptive eye or are aware of the story.
You know what? I think that things are so muddled at the moment and so polarised that I suspect very, very few people can have an overview, can stand back and look at global events and go, aha, there's a process. There's a plan. I see something emerging. I really doubt whether many people can see that, Nigel. I think that many people are completely embedded in the struggle of their own lives that it's very difficult to look above that and kind of go, oh, okay, listen, I think there's some good news here. And I'm sitting with a copy of the Share International magazine in front of me, and it's putting a lot of these observations together, and there is good news, but it takes an educated eye. And I don't mean to be arrogant when I say that.
So we need to, on this program, it's our job to look for the signs that something is unfolding and talk about it. That's our job, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Become educated about it.
Very much. And as one of the helpful staff here at Plains FM reminded us recently, we are a message of hope. And we need to be aware of that. It's very easy to list the problems on old planet Earth. I think we also need to spend a little bit more effort in actually informing people of the great wave of change that's coming.
Yeah. And one of you just spoke of the magazine, the Share International magazine. We're going to be looking at a couple of articles from the magazine that's been published twice already this year, the January-February issue and also the March issue, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But just to finish on the emergence, the conversation so far, the emergence of Maitreya is evident in everywhere and every area of human existence. And the prime example for me is the sword of cleavage. It continues to do its work of presenting us, whether we recognise it or not, with a choice. Strongly held opinions are dividing families and groups globally, each convinced that they are right. And I noticed that the editor's comment in the latest March issue of Share International magazine says the sword of cleavage has become sharper, making choices facing humanity even starker. Would you agree with that, John?
Nigel, I've got the magazine open. At that page, the chief editor is Felicity Elliott, a long-time writer and contributor to the Maitreya story. And it's one of the things that really struck me about the editor's comment when I picked up the magazine. And we've talked about the sword of cleavage a lot on this program, and I think her observation that it's getting sharper, and my interpretation is a damn sight more painful, is quite correct.
The Maitreya's return, he isn't necessarily coming back with soft words of peace. It's actually a sword, isn't it? The sword of cleavage. It's going to separate father from son and brother from brother potentially. It is precisely the action of the sword of cleavage that we are witnessing today. And Felicity Elliott says Maitreya's energy of love is stimulating everyone. So that's both sides, isn't it, of the cleavage. The one who loves and works for justice and sharing, but also being stimulated are the ones who are causing divisions and greed in the world.
I think if we've seen anything in the last 3 years in poor old planet Earth, it is the power of belief and the human ability to cling to it is almost indestructible. So yes, if you've had an argument with someone in the last 3 years about some of the things that are going on planet Earth, you will know the tenacity that they cling to their beliefs. And it's frightening and it's scary, and you really, and I've done this many times, and I know both you guys have done this, you've literally got to walk away, because it would appear that belief is much more powerful than intelligence or honesty or sincerity.
Yeah, it's that central teaching of Maitreya's, isn't it? We do have to employ and detachment. We have to be able to, the best of our ability, not cling on to our own beliefs too strongly. Otherwise, those divisions could become quite harmful.
Absolutely. The thing that is most painful is that in this technological world in which we live, if you only dig a little deeper, you will find good, detached, intelligent, rational information. You don't have to dig too far. But what I think is that people don't want their honesty challenged. They don't want their belief challenged. And we've talked a lot about honesty, sincerity, and detachment, and it's incredibly easy to say. However, personal honesty, in other words, let's have a look at how I operate, let's have a look at how I think and feel, I think is a major challenge. And clearly it's the first step to personal growth.
It is. Honesty, integrity. It's not an easy task, and I think, as you said, we've said it before, it ain't easy to implement these skills and these teachings. So at the end of the day, the sword of cleavage requires us, humanity, to choose for the highest common good, to opt for a cooperative, sane and just future for all 8 billion. And we'll be back in a minute when we look at what Peter and John are going to focus on from the Share International magazine in just a moment. This is Emergence News, and in the studio with me today is Peter. And Peter, looking at the latest issue of the Share International magazine, which article caught your interest this time?
Well, we're talking about the fact of Jesus spending time through the Polynesian islands and in South America and in North America too. And it's an incredible story, and it's there's a book written by Lucille Taylor Hanson. And she's obviously done a lot of research on this, and absolutely amazing. I think we've heard before that Jesus was seen in Polynesia and also in South America, but I didn't realise also in North America.
Really looking forward to that. And John, how about you? What has caught your eye in the magazine, Share International magazine this month?
Okay, I'm looking at March 23. We've talked a lot on this program about the voice of the people, and there's a couple of pages there with snapshots of the voice of the people globally. And the one that caught my eye was 500,000 went on strike 1st of February 2023 in the UK. So there's a number of little headlines I'm going to pick off there and pull out some key ideas.
Cool. Looking forward to this. And I'll just give you a snapshot of the latest March issue of Share International before Peter joins us. In the latest edition of Share International magazine, a subject is addressed which really interested me because I drive an electric car and a scooter for that matter, and I'm often asked about lithium, the extraction of lithium for the batteries. And this subject, the problem of extraction of lithium for car batteries, is talked about by an American Share International colleague, Cher Gilmore. And the article is called The US Environmental Progress and Challenges. So it's a must read if you've got the latest edition. She talks about limiting the size of EV batteries alone could cut the demand of lithium by 2050 by up to 42%. So we need a cultural shift there to smaller EVs. And more public transport can reduce resource demands. So reducing car use in cities, such as London and Paris, they've demonstrated that that can be achieved and could be inspiration for the Americans who continue to depend on big cars to navigate their huge, sprawling cities. So have a read of that, a cultural shift. Not only do we need to go electric or use alternative power for our vehicles and our transport, but we need to look at smaller vehicles, and that's the cultural shift that Cher Gilmore is alluding to. Okay, up next is Peter with the story of He Who Walked the Americas.
This is the Emergence News on Plains FM. For more information, go to shareinternational.org. Okay, thank you very much. He Walked the Americas by Lucille Taylor Hanson. From the Polynesian Islands to the eastern seaboard of the United States, from Canada to South America, they called him by different names: the healer, prophet, the miracle worker, God of the dawn light, the wind is God, the teacher, the white-robed master, Although the names were different, the legends are sung the same. In Polynesia, they tell of 3 great ships that are sailed from the west. Moving across the water, there appeared a fair-skinned man in a long white garment, brown hair and beard growing gold in the morning sun. When he reached land, the people saw that his robe was dry. Thus they knew he was a god. Scholars ascribe this legend to the 1st century AD. Among the Toltecs of the central Mexican, there lived a prophet with green eyes and golden sandals. With 12 disciples, he taught the people his religion of peace. The mold builders of North America told of a great healer who could raise the dead and heal the sick. He walked among the people, hands raised in blessing. A mysterious cross graced each palm. Such are the stories whispered by the holy men and the keepers of the legends for nearly 2,000 years. Revealing the holy legends, in 1918, Lucille Taylor Hanson was a college student spending her summer vacation with the Chippewa Indians north of Michigan. Her interest in their life was mostly as a scholar. Their language and dances, their culture and religions struck a richly harmonic chord in her soul. Dark Thunder, the chief, shared much of the tribal knowledge with her, and one day told her of a holy man who had visited the tribe in distant times. This man came to the Indians when their empire was united, and great cities stretched for miles. Wherever he went, the miracles followed, and always he spoke of the kingdom of his father. In this brief story, Hanson sensed the gem of one much greater. That summer, a council of many tribes was called to tell the young student the holy legends. Her own gift to the council would be a book that would preserve the words for future seekers. Thus was born He Walked the Americas, a book pursued over 2 continents during the course of 45 years. What followed is a story Hanson gathered of those early times. At its heart, a miracle worker, pale of features, white-robed, and with grey-green eyes that gazed into the future. Many scholars agree the Americas were 1,000 years ahead of their European counterparts at the dawn of the Christian era. The picture that Hanson offers of those days is a shining one. Most of North America was united. The common language of the people was Algonquin, or Pané. His capital was the present-day St. Louis, its sacred cities in Michigan. These were the mold builders, whose artifacts and history were preserved in the earth. Their streets and temples were lined with rich green carpets of strawberry vines. Their copper mines supplied 3 nations with a metal that was harder than steel. In Central America, the Toltec Empire flourished. Its capital was Tolan, believed to be the present-day Tucumán. Its sacred city was Colula. The Toltecs were master craftsmen. They constructed magnificent temples and palaces and understood the science of the earths and the heavens. They were exquisite artists. The walls of their temples were murals of splendid colour. The high Andes of South America boasted a similar advanced culture. Their gigantic and mysterious pictographs, so remarkable when seen from the air, are thought to originate from this time. Evidence suggests that these empires were connected by trade. Great highways crossed the land, and navigation of the oceans was well understood. As advanced as these cultures were, 2 practices threatened their stability: slavery and human sacrifice. These evils, with their attendant war and thievery, brought fear to the lives of the people. It was this great wound the prophet had come to heal. His journey began in Polynesia, where he appeared in the first glimmer of dawn. In this war-torn land, he admonished the people to forsake their weapons and resolve old enmities. Ashamed at the first words from this god should be words of anger, they humbly bowed before him. From island to island he spread his religion of love When he left, the people were united. Today, there remains united by culture and tradition. We'll do the second part of this in our next program.
Yes, it's tremendous, isn't it? He walked the Americas, but he also walked the Pacific.
Yes, indeed.
Very close to home for us here in Christchurch, New Zealand.
Yes.
Thank you, Peter. And in a moment, we'll be back with John as we take a closer look at the latest issue of Share International magazine. This is Emergence News. Nice to have your company on the program. And now John joins us. And John, you're not in the studio with us today, but we can still hear you okay.
Okay, look, I've already told you I'm not in the studio, Nigel, and I'm not about to go back on that, okay, unless my conditions improve. Now, I've been reading the latest Share International magazine, The Voice of the People, and 500,000 went on strike on the 1st of February 2023 in the UK. So I'm going to pick a couple of ideas out of that article. Couple of key ideas. Our disputes may be separate, but we have one aim. And a second comment coming out of Paris, some of the demonstrations there, for a fairer world, let's join forces. So I think the people of this planet have starting to figure out that the way to beat oligarchy is to join together. Okay, so thousands of striking workers, including civil servants, university workers, teachers and train drivers, marched in the UK calling for better pay and working conditions. The biggest section of strikers were the National Education Union, so teachers. They were particularly visible. Many of them hadn't gone on strike before and found new confidence in walking out together. Reports from the picket line suggest that young people are becoming union representatives. What have we talked about? What have we talked about, those young people?
The voice of the young. There's a real political power there.
They are the vanguard. Okay, the National Education Union reported 50,000 new members since the strike. According to the Socialist Worker, there were bitter anger against a government that wrecks lives and a pleasure at doing something about it. So that's an interesting comment. That is a comment that really makes me confident because, yes, there is bitterness, and we have seen bitterness all around the world in the last several years, but it's been undirected, unintelligent, it's been destructive. And what we've got demonstrated in Britain is, yes, a bitterness against a government that wrecked lives, but a pleasure to be doing something about it. And I think we've talked about before, guys, the power of doing the right thing in groups. It's that group mind, Peter, that we've touched on before.
And it sounds not just cooperative, but it's also well coordinated too.
It's power. It's force and power and will for good. Okay, so they go on to say, we're so low paid, we've got nothing to lose. That is a dangerous, dangerous individual. The government has systematically underfunded schools for the last 13 years. Enough is enough. We cannot stretch our lives any further, and it's time the government paid up. I think that's incredibly informative when you look at it with an eye on Maitreya's story and some of Cream's comments. The commentator also went on to say it was a great day. The scale and spirit of the day's strike was said to have exceeded most activists' expectations and underlined that workers' action matters. Workers can strike in huge numbers, and when they do, they can't be ignored. And that's from The Guardian and the BBC. So powerful stuff happening in the United Kingdom at the moment, very, very much in line with the predictions of Maitreya brought to us by Benjamin Cream.
Yes, and I remember you on the previous program, you talked about three things that were clear evidence for you that Maitreya's emergence is a happening thing, and Voice of the People was one of them.
Absolutely. It's things are happening, fellows, and we're right at the beginning.
Yeah, nice stuff there, John. What are you looking at next time we come together on the program. We're going to look at the Share International magazine again. And what have you got something that you'd like to talk about next time, John?
Yes, I'm considering going on strike, Nigel, for better working conditions. But I'm going to keep mining that series of articles, The Voice of the People, from the March 2023 Share International. I'll come back with some more stuff that's happening in Europe.
Look forward to it. And Peter?
Yes, so I'll finish off the story about Jesus and his walk through... his work through South America and North America, and also, of course, through the Pacific Islands as well.
A lot to look forward to. We'll see you next time on Emergence News.
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org, and also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.